You guys, do you play in a quartet all the time? I don't have the background. You just
started this year.
You just started this year, so like 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. Wow, you guys are doing an amazing job. And have you been working on this piece the whole semester?
No, we actually started with Haydn, Opus 77.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, you're making my life very difficult because there's not a lot to talk about. So I was sitting in the back, and I think everything probably sounds much different up close, but one of the things I was noticing the most was that I think you guys are all such strong players, and I think that the balance is just sometimes a little bit off. I'm actually losing the first violin. Is it Randall? Mm-hmm. Randall. Sometimes I'm losing you a little bit. Has that been said before? All the time. Okay. Yeah. So I think we have to remedy that. But the problem is I love having so much bass and so much of the inner voices because this piece is so balanced in that way that everyone is important. But I think I'm not just being violin-centric by saying that I need a little bit more of the first violin often. So I think we could work through this a little bit from the beginning. Why don't I just step up here? But like I said, there's really not a lot to talk about. You guys have thought about so many things. What I love is that you think about how you end the phrases. Most people are so concerned with starting together, but what I love is that the color, when you taper off these phrases, is so well done together. So that's impressive. Let's start one more time at the opening. I'll just stop you. Very good. Okay. Very small thing. Whenever I have a rest in something like this, I don't stop moving my bow. What happens when you stop moving the bow?
Does the sound stop?
Yeah, the ringing stops in the sound. So I think it's really important to always be listening for those rests. Otherwise, it's like, oh, you play this lovely thing, rest, 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 and then you play again. But I think there's more continuity if you keep moving it. Sorry, I'm not warmed up yet, but. Regardless of whether you reach or take or not. But if you even have a little bit of noise, it's okay. No one can hear you past like the first row. But I think it gives it that atmosphere of continuity, which I think is great. One more time. Good. Okay. Yeah. Did you feel a difference in that?
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I liked it. It kept my attention even more. I think. Okay, I'm going to be really nitpicky because I don't have anything else left to do. You guys have done all the hard work. But I think the very first note, you have to really think about the color you're going for. I know you're trying to get it to start together and everything. But when I do something like this, I picture like back in the old days when you would record, you would see the sound waves going up and down. Did you ever, before iPhones, I mean? So you used to see it. So it starts from nothing, right? And then it goes up and down and up and down. So right now I feel like you're kind of just coming in. And I want to see that sort of arc of sound coming in. One more time. Very good. Okay, one more thing. Vibrato. Okay, so the sound quality is there now, but I'm not hearing the vibrato change so much within the notes. Sometimes it just seems like you have one vibrato, and I know you have a lot more than that. And I think also within the inner voices and the lower voice, when he has the melody, you can even change the color more with him. Right now it sounds a little bit beautiful, but one color. So within reason, don't overdo it. I want you to go with him a little bit more. So, especially Randall on the, this note. Sorry, I think my violin is open, but I'm hearing that. But if it's, I don't know. And then these notes. I think you guys, in general, in this piece can think a little bit more about bow distribution and using your bow wisely. So if you're I mean, to put it in very simple terms, if you wanted to get louder or softer, you're using more bow. So right now I saw sort of, you're using weight to get it to be louder, but if you use both speed, and then you can do sort of one of those dips, you know, with the bow, like a U shape. One more time. Good. Okay, so here we have that cool part where you sort of take Valerie, right? Where Valerie and Randall switch off the melody. I think this is where I noticed the difference in sound quality. You have a darker sound and she has a brighter sound. So I think we have to sort of remedy that so that you don't stick out inadvertently and that you, I think, match that a little bit more. So why don't the two of you just play right there? So you play your pickup and then you come in and you stay out until the melody comes back. Yeah, so you know, I don't play like the second bar, but come back in after. Good. Yeah, so I think if you can sort of hear that in your mind, so you're really matching that. You're one violinist at that point, just switching off the melody and the accompaniment part. Good. Let's do right where Connor comes in the piano. I want you to think of the long phrase. Connor, I'm kind of losing where you want to go. It's also beautiful, that's the thing, so I don't want to take that away. But I'm hearing, and then, so you really need to pick where you're going. I should be able to sort of draw out your phrase visually if I want to. But it's so hard in this piece because it's so beautiful and there's so many nice harmonies. But if you don't have the ultimate goal there, I think you lose something. So in phrases like this, my tendency is to pick the goal and then work backwards. You know, so pick the place. Don't go from the beginning and work your way up, or else it's so easy to get a little lost on the way, right, in those beautiful places. One more time. And one thing, picky, Connor, if you're going to do, you have a nice little timing, a little rubato, that means that, Randall, you can't do the same rubato, or else it sounds too planned, right? So I think in practice, you guys should be changing it up all the time. Okay. And you should be surprising each other, or else it can sound too like automatic pilot. So do something different this time, and you do something different this time. Very good. But this is one of those places you can show the color. That's one of those like yummy places where you want to really change the color within that harmony. Also, I thought this G is not the same as those ones. So emphasize those color changes a little bit more. Depending on the hall you're playing in, this one is pretty live, luckily. But I was thinking when you guys went right where you started with the dots. You know, like when you see Mendelssohn and you see dots under a slur, what does it mean? I mean, it's like short. Articulated. It's articulated, but I think basically he means not slurred. So I don't take them as like very separated. I take it, I mean, depending on the situation. Obviously, if it's like a bathroom, then you need to have a little bit more articulation. But I think for me, it means just not slurred. So within those dotted eighth notes, you can have different lengths too. I think it's okay. But I do love that you're not, that you are re-articulating before the quarter note. Not. Just make sure that never happens. That's not a good habit. Okay, let's go on for now. Yeah, Allegro. Okay, I'm not sitting back there anymore, but this is one of the places I think where the balance gets a little bit heavy in the accompanimental figures. So I think it's very important to have a different color when you're accompanying than when you're playing the melody. So it's just as active, and I love that you guys are like supporting like crazy. But I think that the color has to be just a little bit different than his, otherwise it's hard for it to come out, because also he's not in a great range, right? So one more time. Also, one more thing, beginning. Is the first note like a pickup, or is it the loudest note because there's a forte under it? Okay, let's say there's no dynamics. Where does the phrase go? If you were just to look at no bar lines, no dynamics, where does the phrase go? Am I gonna have to make you sing? Don't make me sing. Yeah, da, da. Or yeah, so I would say basically the B flat actually. So because he writes a forte and then there's a diminuendo, it doesn't mean that the phrase has changed though, like the intention of the phrase. So I think right now it just sounds like really big from the beginning, and it sounds like the first note is a downbeat to me, instead of this whole thing is sort of a pickup. So I want you to make it sound like a pickup, but still doing the dynamics that he's written. This has been happening in my violin all week, I know. Good. I think one important thing is not to do such a big bulge on the E flat. Because he's pretty good about writing hairpins when he wants hairpins too. So I think, actually do it once where you really go to the B flat. Disregard the dynamics that he's written. Good. And so what I was saying before, working backwards. So right now you started so loudly that you couldn't really make a phrase up to the B flat, right? Okay, do it one more time. Good. Okay, so when you see forte, it doesn't mean like it has to be incredibly loud. I think go for color more than anything else. So let's do it one more time the same way. Make sure that the E flat doesn't get so much attention, because you really do still want to have the ear go to the B flat. Good. But now, subito piano. I love Natalie, the inflection on the eighth notes. But I think then it is sort of, it's almost a subito piano. And you should have that real intense energy you have, but just less. I want people to be surprised that it's there. Okay, here, this is an interesting place, dynamically, because you have a forte for 2 bars and then you have a piano. Is it subito? Is it not subito? I mean, it's not Beethoven, so I think it's okay for it to go down, but I'm not quite sure what you're doing, and I don't hear the piano, which I think is important, especially in a space like this. Contrast. You want to have the loud and the soft, and it's not Brahms, so you don't have a giant upper register, right, in terms of volume, but you can go very low, so I think that's important. Let's see. Valerie, I think it's some of these places where you need to darken up. Maybe try a little farther from the bridge and a little flatter hair. See if that helps a little bit. I'm worried that sometimes the sound, back there I could hear you all the time, which is great. I would prefer it that way than the other way. but I think it needs to be a little bit darker in some of these places. Let's do one more time. Good. So one of these places, I think it's like very rhapsodic. I think it sounds a little straight edge to me. Also, I think, oh, you're on a down bow. So I think you maybe need to save more bow for the interesting part, because we've heard the other part before, right? This is the one that you want to surprise people with. Good. This part, I'm wondering if it sounds too active, actually. We have this sort of exuberance before, right? But maybe we need some contrast. So I think that comes also with articulation. Right now it's like that. And then maybe that can have a little bit more of that. Let's do the second time. Very good. Okay. Now, if David and Wuhan were here, they would make you change your bowing. I guarantee you. On the doing the phrase towards the frog. Why is that? We can. Excuse me.
As we're going to the B flat.
Yep. And also, in terms of just bow distribution, where's the loudest place in the bow?
Frog.
Yeah, frog. So if you're trying to bring something out, going towards the tip makes your life a little bit harder. I also hear you hitting the last note, which is, you know, if you don't, you can control it at the frog not doing that, but your life is a lot easier if you just do it backwards, I think. But let's go on for now. Let's, how about from? It sounds very tame. I want it to sound like so excited. And for me, when I do that, it means motion, like lots of physical motion. Use as much bow as you can, I think. Okay, now we have these hairpins. I feel like you guys are leading the show here, and you probably shouldn't a little bit. So I think whenever we have these group dynamics, it happens in orchestra all the time too. People just do crescendo because they see a crescendo, but why is there a crescendo? You know, probably because the melody is doing something interesting. So he has, oh, that was cool. He has, so he should be leading where that hairpin is. And I know he only comes in at the end, but I think that that needs to be a little bit more important. Just the same. I like that a lot. That was good. Good, but even from back here, I don't hear that much of a difference between the first one, which is in what dynamic? Piano, and the second one, which is forte. Yeah. So I think that, like that B flat, the first one, can be that like really nice, beautiful color, but a little bit under wraps, and then you let it go. Okay, one more time. Okay, one more time. Play around with the rubato a little on the sextuplets. Da, 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 da. Okay, but you guys are actually doing a fake out. Why are you getting so quiet before it says? Doesn't it go all the way to the second beat, right? I think that makes a big difference because the first one sort of tops out after the downbeat. This one goes farther, yeah? Do the first one. You guys start with your eighth notes. Good. Very beautiful. I think, let's see. Yeah, Randall, you have so much control. I think sometimes you can let it go and you can show even more flexibility and, what's the word? Refinement, because you have it. So I think this is one of those places, you have these accents, which, I mean, what sort of character are you thinking there?
Anxious isn't the word, but sort of.
Yeah, there's like an undercurrent of, well, I guess anxiety. But then the next bar, right? So I think you really need to show the contrast because you absolutely can. And I want you to think even more vocally. This piece is, it's very operatic, right? So I think all these intervals, when you have leaps and things, and these octaves, you have to really milk the ends of the notes before the leaps. Right now I feel like you're concentrating on the high ones, but it's that transition into the high ones, the connection between the notes where I think it makes a big difference. Let's see. And I also want to hear more in the sequence. So sequences, again, it's like when you have those high points. You want to, what's your goal? What is the high point of this sequence? And then work backwards. So I feel like these are too similar, that one and the next. So what are you going for at the end? And then start less, right? So I think you still want the energy, but don't give it all away. Where should we start? Let's do the same place. I love this part, 8 notes. Like that. Okay, Randall. The first note. There's no color there. And that's like a beautiful leap. One more time. Okay, this should be, in a room like this, inaudible. I mean, really, really, really little to show the contrast with the bigger dynamics. And what feeling are you going for here? Mystical, yeah. And it's so interesting because he has these very slow moving parts, and then Connor has this noodly stuff underneath. So I think everything you can do to keep that a little bit more calm, and he can provide the anxiety is good. Good, let's do the a tempo. Good. Now, this is another one of those sequences, right? So I feel like they're too similar. So the first one maybe keeps up the momentum a little bit more, and the second one is more like resigned. Yeah. Let's see. I'm wondering balance-wise if you're coming out enough at that fortissimo at the top. I do remember back there I couldn't hear it much. So use your ears a little bit just to make sure that you can still hear it, because that is such a like operatic soprano moment. So we want to hear it. Let's do from the piano, where he has all the eighth notes. but that harmonically sounds too similar. I mean, not harmonically. The way you're playing it makes it sound too similar to the one before. And this one is a real surprise, right? Mm-hmm. So can you guys give me a completely different color on that one? It's sort of a fake out. Maybe from Natalie? Yeah, Natalie's little interjection. Okay, these are, everyone has such an interesting part. So this is one of those places I was talking about, that your color needs to be a little bit different. Keep the energy, but like when Connor's playing the melody, I have a feeling you guys are too competitive in your color with him. So a little bit more under wraps, same energy, maybe even more energy, but stay out of his way a little bit more because yeah, it is Mendelssohn. It's not Mahler or Brahms. So you don't want him to force too much, actually. He should just be able to play a big, powerful solo without you guys getting in the way too much. Whenever you have a long note, basically in any piece, like let's say, oh, I don't have bar numbers, shoot. Stuff like that. The harmony is not the same underneath you always. So those things need to change. I think you guys are all such great players, and it's so easy for you, but I think you need to make it harder and make those color changes happen and acknowledge that things are changing underneath you. So it's not, well, this one is a little bit the same harmony underneath, but having change. So I think sometimes it's vibrato. I feel like you guys tend to have this beautiful vibrato, and it doesn't always change within notes. So it's something to just keep an ear on. We have like 2 minutes. Let's skip ahead, and of course, no bar numbers. If I play something, maybe you'll recognize it. Let's do from here. This will be right before the pianissimo part. Yeah. Let's see. It's before here. Is it that one? I think it's that one. It's like 220 something. 226, 225. You have a bar rest, Connor. It's a bar, yeah. Good. Okay, what's the top of the phrase here? Where is it? Is it where the forte is? 2 bars after. Yeah, so I think you, again, work backwards. So you had already played as loud as you could. Also, I think when you guys are doing pianissimo, I see you just using so little bow. You're doing that for color, but what if you do? So there's a little more air in the sound. I think it might be nice. Let's just do before the pianissimo, 4 bars. Very good. Valerie, I'm losing the phrase motion. I think you're going for a great color and tranquillo, but within that, I still want to know where it's going. You want to do right there? colors are too similar. So I want you to really work to get every single one of those, like every G in a row. How many Gs are you playing in a row? All of them should sound different from each other. And he helps you dynamically, but I think that's just one part of it. I think that within that you can use either different bow speeds, different places in the bow, different contact points. There's so many different variables for that. So I think we're done. Thank you guys so much. Sounds great. Thank you, guys. I know you, Jennifer. I don't know. I think I saw you last when you were like 11 or something.
I think so,
It's
yeah.
crazy. Music world is very, very small. Oh, great. Let's see if that's any different than mine. So I assume you guys have been working on this semester. Have you played before the semester together, or is this your first? Just all right. Oh, sounds great. If you were to generalize, tell me the difference between like French music and Germanic music. Generalize. Any ideas? Don't be so shy. Are they like exactly the same? Does it sound exactly like the Mendelssohn we just heard? No.
I would say that the French style uses colors like different. I don't know if I would say like German music was more like the richer like jewel tones in terms of colors. The French take some aspects of that as well, but on top of that add this kind of pastel tone on top.
I think that's a really good way of explaining it. Yeah, it's quite different. The colors and the places they change color and the amount of color changes, it's so different. I feel like once you guys got a little more comfortable, I started hearing more of those colors that I was going for. When I'm much more comfortable in Germanic music, I like big, beefy, chocolatey, Brahms, Beethoven. French music always makes me a little bit nervous because it's not my comfort zone. But I think for myself, I have to remember like bow speed a lot more. For me, it's a little bit more about getting that sort of color as opposed to like digging into the string so much. So I felt like maybe you were a little nervous when you started. I don't know. And I know for me, when I get nervous, I stop moving my bow and everything gets a little stuck. So I felt like I was getting more of the colors that I wanted to hear a little bit later. So I think something in performance that's so important is to know what happens to you when you get uncomfortable. So everyone has their own thing, right? I think most of us probably don't move our bow enough in general. So I think that's just something to remember. Always move your bow. And in French music, move your bow even more, probably. Also, contact point. I feel like you guys weren't playing around quite enough with it. I feel like you were a little parked on the bridge sometimes. Maybe you have to get a little more comfortable over the fingerboard. Because there are so many quiet dynamics. Like, what is the lowest, quietest dynamic he has in this?
There's
Yeah.
like a
Triple P, right? And the loudest dynamic?
triple forte.
Triple forte. So this is like a huge range. You don't see this in Mendelssohn or Beethoven. It's like fortissimo, but I don't remember triple fortes. So I think that huge range in this piece. So let's really utilize that to get as much out of it as you can, because there's so much that happens in this one movement, right? Okay, let's start at the beginning. I'll just start. I think that's my mic. Good, okay. So it starts piano, and then you have pianissimo, right? Colors aren't different enough for me, I think. Also these hairpins. When you see a hairpin, it looks pretty long, right? But does that necessarily mean it needs to go like up to forte? Probably not, right? So I think within these two sequences, you have to decide where you're going. And right now I feel like you're going to sort of the same point. You have the same high point, but I think they could be different. Connection between the notes. I was talking about this with the last group. I think there's tension at the ends of some of these notes that I'm not hearing. So even, I just felt like you went there instead of. So how are you connecting one to another? It's not just like here's one and here's another. There's definitely a line between them. So for me, I always like to pay attention to the ends of notes and how they connect to each other. I think that gives it much more refinement and much more tension, because usually if you have a crescendo, like that last second before the note change is the most important to bring out. So let's keep that in mind. So one more time at the beginning. Very good. Yeah, that was beautiful. I like that even more. I think you can play around with that as much as possible in this piece, with especially the hairpins. It's so easy to just go loud and go back down to like an even lesser dynamic. But I think I think especially the lower voices. You guys could change your color even more. You play the same notes. What bar is that? You know what I'm talking about with the half notes. So right now, I think the colors staying sort of the same, and they're imitating each other, but you can make it even more interesting by changing that around. Let's start right there. You guys have bar numbers? Oh, you wrote them in. Smart. Good. Okay, so right here at A, totally different dynamic, different color, right? Very important not to get to that color before it happens. I think you guys are doing a nice job of trying to change the color before, but wait till the downbeat to get that really special one, right? That was much better before. Jennifer, I think that this is one of those places where I feel like the bow speed thing is important. I think you have a little too much core when you're imitating each other. I think it could have a little bit more of a like hazy color instead of like a solid color, you know what I mean? And then this mezzo forte. Okay, so how loud did we say the piece got at some point? Triple forte. So mezzo forte, right? Not so much. So this you have a forte right before that, but I think the mezzo forte, think more about colors in this piece and dynamically. So mezzo forte, well, if that were in, let's say Mendelssohn, is pretty loud actually, but here, color. So is this, what color are we going for right here? Anyone? No color? Not a specific one, apparently. Yes, that's true. Yes, I think it's good, especially in French music. I think I have to have something I'm thinking about. It can't just be pretty music all the time, right? You have to have, especially as a group, and you guys don't play together all the time. You're relatively a new group. So I think it's important to go through these sections and have like a visual, something to think about. So if you're all thinking about the same thing, I think it's much easier to get what you're looking for, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's mezzo forte, and let's play that dynamic. Okay, so let's think of something. Anyone?
I think dark blue.
What was it?
Dark blue.
Dark blue, okay, good. What about like an emotion? Is it angry? Anxious? See, okay, well that's what it's sort of sounding to me like now. It's sort of like, we're not quite sure what we're doing, so we're just gonna play pretty, right? So something, we have to grab onto something. So da, 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 da. Let's play that, and each one of you are gonna give me an adjective when we're done playing it. So have something in your mind. Let's start from just right when you start passing off, when you guys start the half notes. And Jennifer, you start down. Okay, we're gonna go around the room. Who wants to start? We'll start this way. Adjective, what do you think? What kind of emotion is that?
For me, it's kind of crying, I think.
Okay, Jennifer?
Like a sense of yearning.
Yearning, yeah.
I got something more reserved excitement.
Reserved, okay, reserved excitement, like a little bit of a internal something.
It's like I want something, but I almost reached it, but okay.
Yeah, that's good. So there's a little bit of anxiety underneath it too, right? So it's not just like so easy sounding. So how are you gonna get that color? Okay, where's our voice? Like, where does color come from? Left hand, right hand? Right hand, right? Like left hand is a little bit more of a embellishment, ornamentation on the top. There's only so much you can do with vibrato. Actually, there's a lot you can do with vibrato. But if you don't have anything going on the right hand and it's just legato all the time, that's pretty boring. So for me, when there's some sort of yearning or anxious feeling, I try to do that with my bow a little bit. So it's not so easy and it's not so plain. There's some sort of motion. So I think we could think about that a little bit. Very good. Let's do the same place. One more thing. Is it Min Kyum?
Yes.
Min Kyum. When you have this part, you're doing beautiful colors, and then you go. So I feel like the little notes get lost a little bit. And I'm not one of the people who say you have to vibrate on every note. It's not my thing. But I think those little notes are the ones, right, that's where it really counts. So let's do the same place. We're going to think a little bit of yearning, anxiety, undercurrent, but it's all under wraps, right? Okay, so don't let it get too big. Very good. Okay. Yeah, that was better already. I think this place with the mezzo forte I was talking about, it could so easily be in piano too, right? I think that's where you're having the feeling of it not like exploding, being so extroverted. So you have to use the dynamics as a guide, but more than anything, I think that's where it shows you like the emotions you need. So you knew that it wasn't huge because it doesn't say triple forte. So I think that gives you a clue into what he was looking for. Okay, now we get to, you have A. Number. Oh, it's probably the same. Yeah, A1. Okay. Here, color change, right? So it's really active for a pianissimo. I mean, the way he writes it, right? Let's just do the inner voices once there. Just the inner voices you can lay out. Yeah, no problem. One more time. One more time. Yes, good. I think even more so, I would actually try to go for no pitch in a way, so you get more air than you get pitch. I think it sounds really cool because you don't do this ever in Germanic music, right? There's not really a place for that. But if you do, it sounds almost like Ponticello in some cool way, you know? So, and then same in the viola. I'm not going to read alto clef right now, but same sort of thing. So a little bit less obvious. Let's hear the outer voices right here, too. Good. So it's so interesting because if you just heard that, oh, it's so pretty and relaxed and whatever, and then you have this craziness. So you guys bring in the crazy, right, in the middle. I'm going to pick on you again. 8th note vibrato. Let's try that again because right now it sounds so beautiful and then it just, yes, not crazy, just like one little nudge. Good. Okay, now even within a pianissimo dynamic, where's the phrase going? I hear beat. Da, 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 da. So within a pianissimo, I still want to know where it's going. So do you know where you're going right now? Okay, let's hear it one more time. Yeah, so much better. Yeah, I think it's really important to forget about the bar lines. When you see a bar line, it's so easy to be, oh, there's a beat there, so I'm going to hit it. But right now, that whole first bar is a pickup, right? So that sounded much, much better. I think this will work. Let's try everyone together. Good. Okay, and now he makes it much more complicated because he's passing the melody around, right? The most important thing is the person who is finishing the melody has to hold that last note as long as you can. Don't worry about the next thing you have, because our ears are hopefully going to the person who has the bar. So don't make it easier on yourself by letting go early and getting to the next thing. Let's just do that without, let's start at A, and only the people who have the melody bars play. So, but actually I think that, let's see. Sam, you can play the whole time. Okay, but Kyum, you did a diminuendo at the end of that bar. Did you hear that? The last thing. In my part, I always, if it's something I need to pass, I write crescendo in parentheses. It doesn't mean that I need to actually crescendo, but it means that I can't get quieter. So I think really important to hold that. And then you change the contact point so you get out of the way after that. You know why you're stressing the first beat of this? Because you're starting at the frog and you're trying to get to the tip. So it's a habit. Most people, you see down bow, you're like, oh, I'm going to start right here, right? Or if you see an up bow, you start here. But it's the middle of a phrase, or it's not the beginning, sorry, it's not the high point of a phrase. So instead of starting here, where you have to get there, I would do. So I get to the frog where I actually want it to be the biggest, right? Okay, start. Let's do the same thing, just the melodies and Sam. I'm still not so happy with that. Especially right now, you have it easy. You don't even have to play the next thing. So hold that until you hear her play right now. Okay, so let's just do that last bar, the bar before the viola, which is the fourth bar of 1. Oh, no, just start on your melody bar. So the fourth bar. Good. Is it Yangzi? I think you're going to have to start your roll a little bit earlier, because where does the melody start? On the top note, right? So you're going to fudge the note before the little da-da a little bit so that you get there on time. One more time, same place. Good. Okay. So let's start at 1 with everyone. And you want to listen to this. I like to tape myself doing stuff like this, because then you can really hear the seamlessness or lack thereof. So I think that's good just to hear that the intention of the note before it goes into that. So not too much crescendo, but not decaying. Okay? 1. Okay, why are you taking time into this bar? Because you heard it on a recording? Because what? Accident, yeah. But you do it pretty consistently throughout the piece. I think you give it away because you want to maybe take a little time into 2, right? That's where it's so interesting. The harmony is so surprising. But if you do it twice, not so interesting, right? Okay, so let's do where Jennifer comes in. Is that weird to start on a half bar? Good. Okay, where does the retard start?
The last bar?
Last bar. Where are you guys starting it? 3 bars before it's there? Yeah. So really important. I mean, this is like a roadmap. Yes, once you know a piece really, really, really well, you can maybe play around with it. But But right now, I think you really do have to do what he wrote. There's a reason behind it, right? So I think you guys have a tendency when there's a diminuendo or when the dynamic drops to slow down, and that's pretty normal. So I think that one before where you took time is because you have a diminuendo, and it's a lot easier to get to the next part if you can slow down. But that doesn't make it the right decision, I think, all the time. So it should be hard. And when you do it well, it's even more rewarding than sort of cheating and making it easier on yourself. Let's start with the allegro. Okay, you're still slowing down. You hear it? So I think inner voices, you're the responsible one. So again, what dynamic is it? Mezzo forte from fortissimo. So I think you can take a hair off the dynamic, which might help you move faster, actually. But just be metronomic just this once. We can maybe fool around with it afterwards, but same place. Yeah. You see how slow it's getting? Okay, I'm going to do it again if I need to, but don't make me do that. It hurts my leg. Okay, one more time. Allegro. Yeah, but it's so much more exciting because you have this, like it's completely going wild, and then you have this one bar to calm it down. I think you guys were just making it much easier, but it doesn't sound better. So just get used to it with the faster tempo. Nice, let's keep going. Let's do it one more time just to practice it, and then we'll keep going. Good, okay. Sorry, I'll stop you again. But the diminuendo in the retard bar, which that was much better. That sounds really exciting, I like it. Who's leading the color change? And the dynamic, actually. Who has a melody?
You mean going to the tempo one?
Mm-hmm. That's not the melody,
Yeah.
right? You have the rhythm, so you're the important one in terms of speed, but maybe color and dynamic, who has the melody? Yeah, you definitely have the melody. So I think we all have to go with his color. Right now it feels like you're all sort of doing your own thing. So I think you're the one who determines where those color changes happen, and even within that, where she's changing. Okay, 3 bars before the tempo. With a pickup. Very good. Okay, Jennifer, I love this part. It's so cool. But so you have all these million A's, right? So it has to sound different. Right now, I think you're doing everything with just using less weight and maybe a little bit of different bow speed. But if you do, like, change the contact point. My violin is not working over there right now. But if you move your bow all the way down the fingerboard, you're going to get even more contrast in color, which I think is a fun thing. That was very good before. Sam, I think you could take a little bit of liberty with those little bars. It's like your big solo. I mean, don't go crazy, but I think that you could have a little more rubato within it and enjoy the notes. Like, you know, when you see notes, okay, it's French music, there's stuff outside of the key all the time. However, I think that's an indication of something important and special. Let's do right there, the tempo. Yeah, okay, like the third note of that bar you just got to, that's such a weird note, right? That's not in the key. So if you don't bring it out, it almost sounds like you're apologetic about it. So when I see a note that's not supposed to be there, more often than not, I try to be a little bit louder or a little bit more, like have a different color on it, just to bring it out. So do the same place one more time. And the weird notes, do something with them. Good. One thing I forgot to mention, Jennifer, I forgot. Sforzandi. Like, how many different ways are there to do a sforzando? With the bow. Left hand. Okay, right now I feel like you're not really doing either. But, so what's probably more appropriate in this place, the left hand or the right hand? I would say probably the left, actually, because it's in a lower dynamic. I'd say I do more of a right hand, like, you know, that in like a loud dynamic. But here, if you do, then you can have a little bit more of a zing with that way. Let's do right on that. So, was that 5 before? 4? Yeah. Now, nice. Good. Okay. Why are you taking time there?
Yeah, he feels like special there.
Okay.
I just, you were trying to
We did
Change-
both ways.
Okay, change color. Good. But I think it's important to be able to do it without that and change color. So I think maybe split the difference on the time, because the harmony hasn't changed yet until you actually get to that note. You're changing it before. So you're sort of setting up something that hasn't happened yet. You know what I mean? Try it one more time. Listen a little bit more carefully. Right on, what is that, 4? Yeah. Good. This is one of those places. It's a hairpin with no upper dynamic on it. What's the like general dynamic you're in? Right here. Pianissimo. Might not be the place to like go up to a forte, probably. I think it's one of those like undercurrent. He has these things where he almost does something and then comes back down. But I think if you give it away too much, then it doesn't make as much sense with the color you had. So think within that color. Let's just do the place where I told you not to take as much time. Down, where's that? 4 before the piano. Good. Good. Okay, so you have this figure right at E or 5. Da, 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 da. How many times do you play that? 4, right? So again, all different. They have to all sound very different, and you have to have a longer phrase. So right now I feel like you're topping out at the beginning. But if you think of it all as sort of a pickup, then I think that'll make it work even more. Did you like that hairpin, the lesser dynamic hairpin? You didn't like it? Oh, bummer. I liked it. I thought it gave it a little bit of like a gasp of something.
I could do a little bit more.
A little bit more? Yeah, you guys can play around with it. But I think just within reason, I think keeping that a little bit more within the pianissimo framework would be good. But nice. Okay, I think we're out of time. Thank you guys so much. Sounds great. guys been playing together long?
Since the start of the
Semester? And you've been working on this piece the whole time? Right? This is one of my favorite pieces. I love, well, Brahms, I think, Brahms, Beethoven, those are probably my favorite composers. So Brahms is so orchestral. I don't know if you guys have noticed, like if all the concertos, the violin concerto, the piano concertos, it's so encompassing. It's not like a solo voice and everything else. I could hear like a whole string orchestra playing this quite easily, actually. And Brahms is so good about having these huge moments all the time. But what I notice is that there's like a lot of fortes, right? And he gives you less information than other composers sometimes. Like, it's not always so obvious. So I think that oftentimes it's just loud for too long, even though I know it says forte. But there are like variations within that that you can do to give those moments, those big moments, more like oomph. Also, he passes things around so much, right? You see that all over this piece. So your ear is constantly going from one place to another. But I think what's also important to remember is that these dynamics you see are group dynamics. He's not one of those composers that gives, you have the melody, so you have forte, but he puts you at piano. It's like usually always the same. So I think we have to do a better job of discerning who the main voice is and having the others have the same intensity, but getting out of the way, like sonically a little bit more. Okay, what is the basic feeling of this movement? Agitated, like all the time. And sometimes it felt like a little too easy, like especially in the quieter times. I think it's so easy, it's much more easy to play agitated when you're loud. There's a lot of motion and stuff, but the quieter ones, I think were sometimes lacking. And sometimes I think that means like a little more motion physically. For me, when I'm thinking agitated, I am moving around. Do you guys study with Annie? You do. So like the Annie like wiggle. We always talk about it a little bit. Annie Kavafian always has wiggle, especially when she's sitting. So I think it's a little bit more of that actually. So it's not just this like sort of stoic sitting in one place thing. It has that internal thing, because we are actors, right, when we're playing. And if we don't embody the music, even physically, it looks a little funny to be agitated but sitting like this, right? And you're not really doing that. But I think in some of the quieter parts, we could use a little bit more of that. So let's start the beginning. So like we see here, it's all piano for all of you guys. Of course, not everyone is like of equal importance, right? But I think what's important is for the people who are more the accompanimental figures or the like motor to have twice as much energy, but just a little bit less dynamic. Good, okay. What I'm hearing is all the energy I want to hear. It's perfect. But what I'm hearing is you guys leading the crescendo. And you guys are topping out before she can even get there. First of all, she's in a bad range. Like A string, D string, like not our favorite place, right? E string, G string, that's good. So I think you guys have to lead the rhythm, but not lead the sort of destination. So let's try that one more time. Especially, how long are you doing a crescendo? 2 bars?
Oh, 4 bars.
5, well, 4.5, right? Actually, basically the whole thing, because in your part, it's the whole thing. So in my mind, I'm sort of picturing, like when I picture pickups, I think of this like, it's kind of like a missile, and it's going to its destination. So I have this sort of like crazy-eyed look going on in my head, but I have a goal at the end. So let her take care of the dynamics. You guys take care of like the rhythmic intensity. Yeah, that was great. That was like much more powerful, I thought, at least from back here. It's probably even better out there. So you have this one long thing. Very good. Let's see, is it Kate, right? When you have these, what I'm hearing is, right, but those are interesting notes because you have E's on both of them, but the landing note, or the last note, is not as much. But I like that it's a little bit less, but it's too little. Can't hear it. One more time. one more thing I'm going to pick on you guys. Bow distribution. Right now, I see Kate, you're kind of compact. You make a lot of sound, but you're doing it by like using weight only. And I think in one of these places when you have a sequence of how many dotted figures in a row, use your bow differently. So by the end, you should be using full bows, both the violinists. Is it Gregory? Greg?
Yes.
Gregory. Greg, okay. So think about bow distribution. Each sequence should be using different amounts of bow. You should never use the same amount of bow twice in a row in a sequence, period. Right? Okay, one more time. Good, okay. Is it Márta? Yes. Can you vibrate on those? Yeah? I mean, I hate to ask you. I know, why would he give you an octave? That's just so mean, on the viola especially. But I think, right now it sounds a little like dead. It's interesting, but I think that there's still tension. And if there's no vibrato, there's not a lot of tension. So I think hit it, but then keep the intensity. Yeah, so let's just do 2 bars before that, bar 5. Good. Let's see. So, something even physical. I feel like you're too relaxed. You're doing, and it's perfectly in tune. Good for you, because that's not so easy. But I think that you have to do more than that. So for me, even like visually, I would be like crazy-eyed, intense. Okay, let's try that one more time. Let's just do on the chords, 2 chords. Very good. Yeah, the first one was great. Second was also great. But you're sort of the bridge between these 2 places, right? So I think in terms of contact point, you could change something. So if you start like, then you can get something really cool at the end. So really listen to the end of that note and make sure you get the color. You're leading them into a different color. Same place? Beautiful. Okay, I'm hearing beautiful playing, but I have no idea where that phrase is. So I'm hearing da, 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 da. So where are you going?
4 bars.
Yeah, 4th bar. So don't rest on it. Again, this is really, really, really long phrase. Think of everything's sort of an upbeat to that. That was great. I loved it. You really captivated the ear. So you want to? No, I'm not going to make you do it again. Let's just do right on bar 11. Okay, but you're sort of doing a fake out. You see where the hairpin is? Da 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 ya da da. You're sort of making it something that it's not, right? You're supposed to go to the top. Now let me just hear you play that bar by yourself, the first one. I mean the second bar, first one with the hairpin. Okay, the B flat is not the loudest note right now. Yeah, the fingering makes it harder. It's a little bit more difficult now, but and do the second one. Okay, what is the easiest way to make that note be a little bit louder right now?
Maybe more bow.
Yeah, more bow speed, exactly. So not the same on every single, what's the 2 triplets, 6-tuplet basically. Good, and now more bow and more bow speed. Yeah, but you're not taking away the weight, so. Better, yeah. And I thought the same thing, Greg, when you had that later too. The same, or actually you have it right there. I should make you play it together. Let's play that together. 2 of you. Let's do right on 11, just the 2 of you. Better. Okay, now let's hear the chord with everyone. Just play the downbeat of 12 for me. That's right. Okay, now play the downbeat of 14. Totally different things. If I was just to look at any of your parts, well, it's mostly, I say, Greg, yours looks different. But if I were to look at Kate's part, it's the same chord. But actually, it's completely not the same chord, and I'm really bad with harmony. I'm not going to tell you which chords those are, but you know that it should sound a lot different than each other. So you have like bar 11 and bar 13, which sound basically identical, but the landing is not the same. So don't make it the same F. Let's do everyone at 11. Okay, and now you're making a thing of this hairpin. So now it's making me a little seasick. So within a long phrase, you can do some time, but if you do it, it becomes a little less interesting. Pick your battles, pick which one you actually want it to be on. Okay, 11, that you have these hairpins. There's nothing else written, and I don't feel like you're doing many other dynamics. But I think within this piano, there are different things you can do. So but maybe the second one. A little crescendo, a little stretching on the last note to really get that tension in the note before you start it. Let's do the same thing. Surprise me with the timing of things. Okay, that should sound like one person. And right now I hear da da da, rest, da da da. You need to hold longer. You need to come in earlier. Yeah. But let's just hear the two of you right there. Should be seamless. Good. Yeah, I like to keep my bow moving even after I play. Because you can't even hear that maybe past even Kate. And then, Márta, when you come in, you can like sneak in a little bit more before. So it's, especially on viola, you're not sure if it's going to speak. Yeah, better. Also, I think if I'm being really picky, Greg, I would probably do that on one string. It sounds a little bright for one note, and then you go darker. Maybe that should meld. Let's just do, where's a good place? How about 17? Okay, very good. This is one of those like orchestral parts, right? It's crazy, but he's not helping you. It's all forte. Who has the melody? They have the melody. I'm hearing a lot of eighth notes, like a lot. And because it's in a good register for you, I think it's one of those things. Go up there to the dynamic, hit it, and come back, but not with intensity. Your first note, 22, needs to have even more tension. Right now it sounds like you're thinking about the whole long crescendo, but I want that color right at the beginning. Just do da 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 from, what was that, 2019. So, long crescendo, and you have forte for how many bars? I mean, really, if you look at this, it's the same thing with all the orchestra pieces too. When I hear people play like excerpts, Brahms excerpts, they're so loud all the time, and it's not necessarily their fault. It is forte all the time, but that doesn't mean that you have to play forte all the time. So I think the first forte is a guide, and then you have a crescendo, because what's your top dynamic later, like whatever, 8 bars later? Forte, right? Exactly. So there's a crescendo to a forte. So I think for me, I take his dynamics not with a grain of salt, but as a guide. I usually start less than what it says to give myself room. So where's your ultimate goal? Yes, exactly. So you have a long way to go. So I know it says forte, like within 2 bars, just don't do that though. So let's do 22. And that one I think is even more, like, so you save even more bow for that. That was much better. I think you can even take that farther, so really, really long. All of these sforzandi should be growing, right? You know how like in Beethoven, if you see multiple sforzandi, it's a crescendo. It's the same thing, I think. So saving room. Dun, dun, dun. You might even want to play around with hooking those. You can give you, I think, a little more power if you can use more bow, but because you're having to stay near the frog, you get less, maybe crescendo on that. Good, let's keep going. Dun, let's just do like, where's good? 3 before A. Okay, one more thing. Kate, you're using like 3/4 of your bow. So forte, all the time. You're very comfortable at the frog because it's easy to play forte down there. But I think utilize bow speed more. You like to use weight to make volume, but I think you get so many more color variety, like variety in color, if you can do both. Good. Again, same thing. I know I'm repeating myself, but you have a forte, right? You have the long crescendo forte. Where's the forte? Where's the high point of it? 40? Yeah, like the second, yeah, exactly, the second beat, big second beat. So when you see a forte, it's not an arrival. Very important. I would just even like cross that out and put the forte a bar and a half later. I feel like Brahms is so confusing because you see these big things and then there's no dynamic, but usually when you see like a diminuendo, that means it's the high point of the phrase, and then you go down. So right now I feel like you don't have anywhere to go. Let's see. Márta, can you be even more anxious sounding at A? Yeah, do like the Annie wiggle. Right there. Okay, let's start right there. Good. Good. Yeah, this plays, that always happens. Yeah, so she's doing a really good job of trying to like maneuver around your rubato, but I don't think that she should have to. So you guys have to keep a solid tempo. So I think in this place, I like to be a little more visual about it. It helps them if they can just see where the beats are. It's not their fault they can't hear you because they're busy doing other things. And again, we have, what is our dynamic? Let's see. We have, again, forte for nothing, and then a crescendo to forte, right? So forte does not mean forte always. So what's your plan dynamically? Where's the high point? Okay, so let's remember that before that, to take that forte with a grain of salt. Let's do 45. Yeah, more bow, yes, more bow. Well, actually, just different amounts of bow. You have at 54 all those different sequences, you know, same rhythm. And then I hear loud for a long time. So what are we going to do about that within the loud dynamic? I mean, okay, if you think of playing, let's say, Bach, what is like such a general rule? If the line goes up, you get louder. If it goes down, I mean, that's a very, very general, basic thing. But here, you have the same sort of thing. So at like B, you have, doesn't mean that you have to do, that's probably one of those places that I would come back down. And you all have sort of things like that where you can get out of the way. Kate, let's just do 54. I want to hear those all those slurs sounding different with different amounts of bow.
Sorry.
Good. Okay, one thing that I was noticing when you're playing, you shift too early. So you're not holding on to the note before the shift. Like right now you're doing a 1 on a A flat, and then you're switching over the A string. You move too early, so I hear like a slurp. So make sure you hold on to that note for the last possible second. And especially when you have those 2 A flats in a row, different amount of bow speeds for both of those, especially. One more time. Yeah, that's good. Very good, much better. Okay, let's do 53, everyone. So when the line goes down, maybe come down a little bit with it and fool around with it. Okay, good. Right here is the change, right? So it's like the third beat. He always does that. You think it would be like a downbeat, but the beat is always in the wrong place. But what I'm finding is that you get to a nice color there, but you're giving it away too early. And I think that, Greg, that's your responsibility. So you're the bridge for 2 bars, basically. So don't get to that color before it's there. You have 2 bars to do a diminuendo. So I think keep the intensity a little bit longer. That was much better. Really good. Is there like a rat in here? What is that? Okay, let's start at B. But you're getting too relaxed too early. I think you guys have to play off each other. Da, 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 da. So again, anxious. I think it's pretty anxious until she comes in. Okay. Same place. Okay, wait. Where's the top of that crescendo? Right where you got quiet, probably, right? So do what he says. I think he was very intent on doing the top of it right there. And then it comes down. Let's see. What I love about this part is that, okay, you have like the anxious part together, right? And then you have the same figure, but it's like a completely different feel. And I think you could do that even more. So maybe keep the first one anxious, and that 8th note maybe has a little bit more of a flip to it, and then it sort of evens out. Let's just do, same place, sorry. It's no good place to start after that. Nice. Okay, this one I always have trouble with because they have a subito piano and you have nothing. So have you guys tried it with not doing that? Because they don't need time. You know, usually we see a subito piano and you need time to make it happen, but you guys are good enough to not need time at all. Could we just try it once where you don't do that? Where's a good place to start? You pick. 68? I don't know. 67. 67. Good. What did you think of that? I kind of liked it. I mean, he's pretty good about writing what he wants in that respect. So I think it makes it more rhapsodic sounding, and they're doing their own thing underneath, but you're maintaining this sort of virtuosic little passage. Let's see. We're almost done. Do the same thing one more time. I want to hear that. I want you to play around with the timing. You've done it identically twice. So I want you to do something completely different than what you just did. And this is what should happen in rehearsals. I remember having a coaching, actually it wasn't coaching, it was a group with Pete Wiley, and we were doing a Rossini quartet, very operatic. And every time I did something, he'd be like, you did that last time, do something different. You did that last time, do something different. And it was so hard because you have to use your imagination all the time. But this is one of those places. They should not know what you're going to do. Okay, it's too much the same color as what you just did. Yeah, beautiful, but different. That was great. That was really beautiful. And I think if you switch it up a lot, sometimes you're surprised by what you can come up with. And I usually save like the good one for the concert. So I have other ones in mind, but I know I sort of map out more what worked the best. Good, just right here. So let's do second half of 73, or the last beat of 73, the half note. Good. Yeah, that was beautiful. And I think that Kate, you could set them up differently to help that. So make sure that yours are different. That was beautiful. Great. Thank you guys so much. Really beautiful playing. Thank you. Take a bow. Take a bow.